Good morning. Oh, hang on a second. Something happened with the camera. It's in the wrong place. There, is that it? Yes, kind of. Sorry, I mean, what? Why is this pointing in the wrong place? Is this supposed to be somewhere else? Hang on. Hang on, Team America. Did I do it? I don't know. Who knows? It feels like it's like super close up today, like it needs to be lower. I don't know what's happened. Something going on. Anyway, it's nice to see you. Welcome to the Anthony Davis Show. Sorry about the technicality issues. Why is this camera so high? Or maybe it's me sitting really low. Maybe I need to be up here. I don't know. We'll cope. Just looking at it. I'm on a cushion. I'm on like 3 cushions already with the cushions. One second. I'm trying to fix the camera. If you're listening to me and you can't see me, then I'm trying to fix the camera. I haven't left. Still here. Stacey, good morning. Welcome to Backchannel. Yeah, for some reason the camera's pointing at the ceiling and I just can't get it to point. Oh, hang on. I did it. Oh, it's got a whole other hinge on it. I didn't even know that there's like another hinge. This whole time I've been using this camera, like moving cushions around, and there's an extra hinge that tilts like this. This is life-changing. You know, in a way, it's kind of good that the camera was in the wrong place because it has forced me to discover that there's a whole other hinge. I mean, what have I been doing all these weeks? Sitting on like 20 cushions to try and be the same height as the camera, and it turned out the camera had a hinge on it all the time. It's like a discovery, you know? It's like a voyage of discovery. Because, you know, you're supposed to be like 2/3 up in the frame. That's where you're supposed to be, like 2/3 up. And I was always a little low. And I was like, such a shame the camera sits so high. And it turns out, totally fixable. Stacey's having peanut butter sandwiches, chips, and brownies next. I'm pretty hungry. I'm quite tired. I've already been up and done stuff this morning. It's quite I mean, it's 9 o'clock here on the West Coast, but I've already done loads this morning. And I just wondered, because today is 2/2/2/2/2/2. You know that, don't you? And in fact, at 10 o'clock tonight, it's going to be 22/2/2/2/2/2. And I was thinking, you know what? Well, Carla's saying there's got to be something mystical. This is what I'm worried about. I haven't read Nostradamus for a long time, but I'm like having this distant memory, and maybe I'm projecting that Nostradamus said the world would end on 2/2/2/2/2/2/2, and then in the other hand, I'm thinking about Vladimir Putin, you know, and the nuclear codes, and him not being a very happy boy today. And I was like, wow, because I was thinking about this yesterday, like building up to today with the 2/2/2/2/2/2, and then of course I've been covering the Ukraine crisis in quite a lot of detail, and thinking about, you know, because he's a very volatile character, and obviously he has nuclear capability, and he's, I don't know. I mean, I was just, all of the wrong thoughts. I was having all of the wrong thoughts. I still can't get over the fact that there's a hinge on this camera. It's like a miracle. There's a hinge on the camera. Anyway, welcome to Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. This is the Anthony Davis Show. For a couple of hours, we're going to talk through the news and look at different stuff. Going to go to the morning papers. You can message me. You can go to backchannel.tv, type your message. You can look at us on YouTube on the live stream. You can wake up your Echo device. If you've got an Echo Show, then just say the word "say" and then your message. Today we're going to look at the Ahmaud Arbery trial. Jury finds killers guilty on federal hate crimes charges. We'll look at that in a little more detail. Russia is beginning an invasion of Ukraine, the US says. And also SCOTUS officially kills Donald Trump's bid to block documents from the January 6th committee. How he ever thought. It's so crazy, isn't it? Like, you know, you pack the court with conservatives hoping that they're going to protect you, but they're also like legal experts. You can only interpret the law in one way. You know what I mean? And finally, on Black History Month, Claudette Colvin, the woman who refused to give up her bus seat. I'll take a look at her legacy as well. Oh, she did it 9 months before Rosa Parks did it. I mean, this is why we need to learn about these people. We just need to know what's happening with these people, who they are, what the story is. So that's kind of how it looks. It's the 22nd of the 22nd year, the second month. And if you're happy to sit and wait with me till 10 o'clock tonight, well, then we can celebrate all the twos. All the twos. Let's look at the morning papers. We're going to start with the Abilene Reporter News. They lead this morning with Abilene Public Library teaching line dancing at the North Side branch. I mean, I don't know if that's healthy or not. I mean, it's definitely worthy of the front pages, but I just don't know if it's healthy. Line dancing is like a necessary evil. I mean, I know it's like a national dance in certain states, but I don't know. Is it really dancing? Is it? Michael, hello. Emma, welcome. First time on the show. Great to see you, Emma. Thank you for joining Backchannel. Stacey, do you like a line dance? I don't know. I'm going to answer for Stacey. No. Emma's in Pennsylvania. Michael's in Virginia. Welcome to Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. We're looking through the morning papers where you are. This is a poll that says record 7.1% of U.S. adults identify as LGBTQ. The number of U.S. adults who identify as LGBTQ has rocketed to a record 7.1%. And young people are again steering the increase, a poll released last week shows. Do you know, I'm very surprised at this. Because I always thought that the statistic was actually the same all over the world in terms of the number of people who are gay. And I always thought that the percentage was 10%. I always was led to believe that it was 10%. Right. And yet, 7% of US adults. You know something? I think there might be 3% who haven't come out yet. I think that's what we might be talking about. I do think that there is still in certain places a stigma in America associated with LGBTQ+, and I feel like there's got to be another 3% in there somewhere. They're I don't know, maybe they're in the clergy. Maybe that's why they haven't responded to the poll. The 7.1% is double the percentage from 2012. Wow. It's double the percentage in 10 years. When Gallup first measured identity, and it's up over last year's poll that showed 5.6% of adults identify as LGBTQ. In a 2017 poll, that number was 4.5%. The upswing is significant, they say. They say, I think it speaks to society changing in terms of acceptance of people with different sexual orientations and gender identities, and people's willingness to identify that way. I mean, there's definitely people that they haven't included that they should have done. One springs to mind, Mike Pence. It's not going to be too much longer, they say, before LGBTQ identification is in double digits in the US population. One of the most striking takeaways of polls in recent years is the wave of younger generations embracing their identity. Now those youths are moving into adulthood, meaning more people are entering the 18-plus world as LGBTQ. That population change is what's driving this. I mean, it's very interesting, isn't it? I do love a poll. Love a poll. Sky, welcome. Great to see you. Stacey says yes. Is that in answer to line dancing? Great. Go for it. Knock yourself out. In fact, you probably will if you're line dancing. And if you live somewhere where, you have a local paper and you'd like me to just talk through the stories, just tell me where you are. Maybe Michael in Virginia, you'd like me to look at a Virginia newspaper, or Emma might be in Pennsylvania and might want me to look through a newspaper there. Just let me know. Just, tell your device. If you're listening, Emma and Michael, I think you're both listening on speakers that don't have a screen. So you could just go to a web browser on your phone or your computer. You just type in backchannel.tv and you can message me there. It's just like a web chat facility. Local cases, hospitalizations in precipitous decline, it says. Only one Hendrick Health employee currently is quarantined for COVID-19. The number was one of several data markers that indicated COVID-19 in Abilene has significantly declined, which is very encouraging. Lovely. Okay, let's jump to another newspaper now because we've completed that one. Let's go to the Austin American-Statesman, this time for Austin, Texas. Charge Austin officers turn themselves in. Oh, good, good. I'm very pleased to read this. It says the majority of the 19 police officers who have been indicated on aggravated assault charges related to the May 2020 protests against police violence have surrendered to authorities. Travis County District Attorney's Office documents assert that all these cases involve a protester who was hit with a beanbag round of rubber bullet, but not all of the indicated officers fired those kinds of munitions, their attorney said on Monday. And they're a motley crew. I have to tell you, I'm looking at photos of them, and I would be scared of all of these individuals. Genuinely. I would genuinely be scared of all of them. They actually look like, do you remember in the old Batman films, like the original Batman movies from the 90s with like Michael Keaton? Do you remember like the assembled baddies when they all like sat round a table? And they all had something slightly wrong with them. You know, they either had a thick neck or they had like small ears or like a monobrow, or there was like something like they were really like the criminal fraternity of Gotham. That's what these guys look like. The criminal fraternity of Gotham. That's what we're dealing with. These are the people that are sent out to protect us and serve us. They're given weapons, and they're told to just get on with it without any oversight. Lord help us. Also on the front of the Austin American-Statesman, 4 accused Paxton. Well, it's very hard to describe these people. I mean, Carlos is suggesting I should describe them. I mean, I did describe them. They're the Gotham baddies. You know, there's like 5 of them, and they all look like they. My point is with these people. My point is that, you know, I've always had this view that not all, but some people that go into the police service, and maybe in America it's slightly more, because, you know, it has a lot more. There's a lot more aggression involved. That people that are drawn to this job are natural aggressors. They enjoy confrontation. They like to assert their authority. When they wear the uniform, it gives them license. And I don't want to judge a book by its cover, and so that's really why I don't want to describe these people in too much detail, because I honestly feel like, you know, everybody should have goodness in them, and the fact that they've turned themselves in suggests to me that they do have a modicum of conscience, social conscience, but they're all terrifying. They are terrifying. Yeah, they all have a square head. Yeah, it's a prerequisite of the Austin Police Department. They're required to have a square head with a thick neck. You know. One of them looks like Adam Driver. One of them looks like Anakin Skywalker after the fight on the Fire Planet. One of them looks like the Prime Minister of Australia. And the other one looks like a prison guard. Yeah, I was going to say, he looks like Doogie Howser, the one at the back there. That's what I was going to say about him. 4 whistleblowers who accused Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton of bribery and other misconduct issued a detailed rebuttal on Monday to what they called numerous false and misleading public statements made by Paxton in recent weeks. The 4 former high-ranking officials in Paxton's agency said they had hoped to let their fight play out in court, where the whistleblower lawsuits argued that they were fired in retaliation for reporting illegal activities to the FBI and other authorities in September 2020. The people of Texas deserve the truth, the 4 former officials said in a joint statement. The most basic qualifications of an attorney general are respect for truth and respect for the law. Ken has neither, they say. Paxton, facing 3 Republican opponents in the March 1st GOP primary, has dismissed the whistleblowers as rogue employees who worked to stifle a legitimate investigation into complaints made by Austin real estate investor Nate Paul. I mean, the crazy thing about this is that these whistleblowers, it's not like they're accusing some kind of backroom office boy. They're accusing the Attorney General of Texas, of bribery and other misconduct. And I tend to believe them. You know, whistleblowers are very brave, I think. You know, very, very brave. It takes a lot of courage to be a whistleblower. The Facebook woman, her name will come to me in a moment, she's my favorite of late. She is my favorite because she has basically, one woman has gone up against one of the biggest, most influential companies in the world. And I really was like, how on earth did you find the strength to do this, knowing what would come of this, knowing what the backlash would be like, knowing that you are going to be hauled over the coals, knowing that you are going to be criticized? Frances Hagen, yeah. Frances Hagen, yeah. And she, the other thing about her is that she looks amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's tall, she's striking, she's got like this very trusting look. You know, like you would not look at her and go, she's making it up. You would look at her and you'd be like, you know something? You don't need to tell lies. You've got it all. You're tall, you're smart, you're beautiful. You've literally got it all. Why would you need to tell lies? And she's doing it because she knows. She absolutely knows that there is damage. And you know something I read this morning, briefly, I don't know the details of it. I'm just going to say two words that is going to shock you. You may know these two words already, but it's going to shock you. And it was an announcement by Meta. And the two words are Instagram Kids. The new venture. Instagram Kids. Yeah. I heard those two words today and I was like, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. No. No, no, no. No. Is there no end to this? Yeah, I mean, I think about my daughter, who already is like loving her iPad. You know, I limit the iPad. She's only allowed to do certain apps. But I'll be honest with you, I feel like, how much money does one company need? How much growth do the shareholders expect? What is this desire to just kind of keep, just keep pushing and pushing and pushing to like grow this thing when it's already the biggest thing in the world? If it's about maintaining it, then maintain it. But don't reach into the world of the child and expect there not to be problems. I don't know. This whole thing about giving the people what they want. I always have changed that word want to need, right? Need, if you replace want with need, you get a whole different spectrum of stuff. What do the people need? What do they actually need? Give them what they need. Because fundamentally, people don't know what they want. People are consumers. They will consume what you give them. If you put a big plate of French fries in front of them, they're going to consume them. But if they're hungry and you put a salad in front of them, they're going to consume the salad. Because they don't know what they need. They just know what they want. Yeah, the genius of Burger King. Have it your way. Sleep has joined us. Good morning, good morning. Kathy, Noah, Sky, Michael, Emma. What a wonderful troupe we have. Stacey says it would take a lot of courage and strength to stand against any government that wants to infiltrate. Well, here's another name. Thank you, Stacey. Here's another name. Oh, it just escaped me. Alexander Vindman. Alex Vindman. Another great name. When we're talking about whistleblowers, I think Alexander Vindman might be the greatest American of the decade. What that guy did, He was working for the U.S. military. He was listening in on the perfect phone call that Donald Trump had with Vladimir Zelensky when he was asking him to investigate Hunter Biden. And Alexander Vindman blew the whistle. And he said, this is not right. This is, what was the word that he called? Was it called extortion? I think so. So Alex Vindman and Francis Horgan. I mean, these two, I'd like to see these two on the cover of Time magazine. And you know, weirdly, I don't put Julian Assange into this same bracket. I just don't. I don't see him as a whistleblower. I see him as wanting to blow it up. I see him as someone who wants to sow chaos. I actually see him as a baddie rather than a goodie. And why is that? Because you would argue that, you know, Assange, with his access to all of these top secret documents and releasing documents, and this might sound crazy, but, you know, there is a reason that some documents are classified. There is a reason. Documents are classified to protect countries, to protect civilians, to protect the world order, and to... I agree. I do think Julian Assange is on the wrong side of history, and I understand that he's trying to make it look like it's a bit like names with me today. I'm just terrible. That right-wing guy that we talked about the other day, who you know, the very eloquent university professor who everybody thinks, Jordan Peterson. It's a bit like Jordan Peterson. You know, people look at him and they go, well, the guy, you know, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. Like, he has freed all these people's thoughts. He's like given this, and it's like, the guy's a baddie. Like, can't you see that he's a baddie? He's just trying to blow it up. But he's wearing this veil of intellectualism. And unfortunately, if you're not an intellectual, you will be sucked into that. And again, it goes back to giving people what they want rather than what they need. Yeah, Assange, I mean, there's a whole story there. You know, there's a whole story there. It's fascinating. Jackson, welcome to the show. First time on the show. Appreciate you. Welcome. You're in, says you're in America. Well, I'm grateful for that. So am I. Isn't it great here? Love it. We're just talking about whistleblowers and you know, the difference between a goodie and a baddie when it comes to whistleblowing and how it is that there are so many baddies holding responsible positions of authority in this country. Like, people that they're up to no good. And I'm referring here to, of course, the Texas Attorney General, General Ken Paxton, who's being accused of bribery and misconduct. Yeah, that whole phrase, don't tell tales, is like it is almost saying don't blow the whistle. And, you know, maybe don't tell tales in Ireland, maybe, is part of the reason, I'm talking about Northern Ireland specifically, is part of the reason why there's been all of these, you know, sex scandals with priests. And how they've been able to get away with it. Because children have been brought up not to tell on adults. And so it's so embedded into the culture that it enabled the clergy to get away with so much. Railroad Commissioner targeted over handling of freeze. This is this year's primary election is the first time an elected official responsible for regulating the state's oil and gas industry will be on the ballot since the nearly catastrophic failure of the state's power grid last year. Railroad Commissioner Wayne Christian, a Republican who has served on the regulatory panel for more than 5 years, is running for re-election. The three-person commission has faced searing criticism for the role natural gas producers played in the widespread blackouts. Christian faces 3 Republican primary challengers who have put the commission's role in the disaster and its delayed efforts to enact new weatherization requirements for natural gas facilities at the center of their campaigns. But between low fundraising numbers and limited statewide awareness of the agency's purview, Christian's opponents face an uphill battle. Again, it's more of the same, isn't it? It's more of the same. It's elected officials who fundamentally are there for the wrong reasons. You know? Just for the wrong reasons. Some lovely new newspapers. We're going to look at the Beaumont Enterprise now for Southeast Texas. I haven't seen this one before. Wonderful. USW ratifies ExxonMobil contract. The United Steelworkers Union, District 13, voted on Monday, 214 to 113, to ratify the latest contract offered by ExxonMobil in what could be a step towards ending the 10-month lockout. We're going to notify Exxon that the contract was ratified and we have to continue talking to them about the return-to-work agreement. USW District 13 Representative Brian Gross told the Enterprise on Monday, "We have to agree on how everybody goes back, how their benefits are affected, and how everybody rolls back to work." Work begins on the park feature. Officials said update to splash pad could take 2 to 6 weeks. Yes, you've got to get that splash pad sorted, boys. I told you we can't do anything unless the splash pad is up to scratch. And I'll be checking. I'll be bringing my swimwear and I'll be checking that splash pad. BISD culinary instructor empowers students through the art of cooking. This is Evans's lessons help program participants to bring more to the table. Do you know, I love cooking. We haven't really talked about cooking very much on this show. I don't know why, but I love cooking. And I am a really very, 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 very average cook. And it does not stop me. It's a bit like singing. I can't sing, but that does not stop me singing. And I can cook quite well, as in like I can, and I like cooking for large groups as well. I love doing like a meal for like 30 people or 20 people or 10 people, you know? And so I'm less likely to cook just for myself, but if I'm cooking for a group, I love it. And I love doing the timings, and I love the science of it, and I love burning things on purpose to get flavor. You know, no color, no flavor, they say. So Brussels sprouts. Let me give you an example like how I cook Brussels sprouts, because everybody does it different. My mother would boil them to death, literally boil them until there was no sprout left in those Brussels. All I do is cut them, I wash them, cut them in half. I put them into a pan with nothing in the pan, no oil, nothing. A hot pan. And then I get a big knob of butter and I just put it on the top, a little salt and pepper, and I just leave it. Cover it and leave it. So you're frying the Brussels sprouts. You're frying them. But you're purposely not putting oil everywhere. Just leaving a knob of butter on the top to seep through. And it means that the sprouts get burned and and you don't want to cook them too long that they turn to the wrong color green. Do you know what I mean by that? Like if you overcook a Brussels sprout, it changes color. It becomes... Well, I don't have any expensive pans. I just have cheap IKEA non-stick pans. You know, I think I bought a set of 4 for like $40 or something, right? It works a treat. It works a treat. Cover it, let it go. I think it's the Teflon coating that protects it, you know? And also gives you a little bit of cancer at the same time. These delicious cancer sprouts that I'm making. But that's the way to do it. And then you start to stir them once they start to, you know, smell like they're burning. You like mix them up a bit. But the secret is to not over oil them, you know, because you want them to be burned. And lots of salt. Some people add bacon, and I used to add bacon, but I've actually decided that I don't think it's necessary. I think you can't taste the sprout as well. So burned, halved, butter. It's got to be butter. I mean, I use a fake butter now. The vegan butters now are so good. They're so good. A lot of them are made with like a coconut base. They are, in terms of cooking, you know, not just spreading, cooking. So good. Well, I can hear a big plane overhead. It's like shaking the whole thing, so I'm just going to go on the app and have a look what it is. It's not even showing up. Sometimes that means it's military, you know? Oh, maybe it was that one. No, it can't be that one. That was too high. It's worrying here, you know, like sometimes the military fly over as a show of might. Are you aware of this? Where they fly in formation as a show of might, and I always think it's like to remind the civilians, the people like us, that there is a military force that is maintaining order. I'm sure it's not that, but that's how it feels. And so what I just heard overhead sounded like a couple of, you know, military aircraft flying together like low and slow, like a Chinook or something like that. See it all the time here. Interesting. A project to relieve flooding in Amelia. The Amelia neighborhood is getting a new detention pond at the corner of Phelan and Todd Street, right near the railroad. Oh, good. Oh, good. And then finally, on the front of the Beaumont Enterprise this morning, a photograph of a Ukrainian soldier waiting yesterday in a trench recently attacked with mortars in Ukraine. He's in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia. He's not. He's in Ukraine. It's Novosvanivka. Novosvanivka. Not Nova Scotia. Novosvanskina. Novosvanskiva. Ukraine. It's Ukraine. I do them all. I try not to because it sounds a bit racist, and it really isn't. But, you know, I do them all. I love to count. 1. Russian President Vladimir Putin raised the specter of war on Monday by ordering troops into separatist areas of eastern Ukraine in his most dangerous provocation yet, with Washington over the fate of a nation that could redraw the map of Eastern Europe and upset the decades-long security architecture of the continent, it says. The move to send soldiers to carry out peacekeeping functions has further inflamed animosities with European capitals. Yeah, this is what Putin said yesterday. We're going to send the troops in for a peacekeeping function. And of course, it's a lie. It's a lie. It's a pretext for war. George, thank you for joining us. Welcome to Backchannel. Nice to see you. And Morgan as well from New Jersey. First time on the show. Morgan, wonderful. Welcome. Deborah. Hello, Deborah. Welcome. I wonder if it's the Deborah that we know and love. And Stacey says, I can sing, but I can't cook, and that's why I let my family do all the cooking for me. Well, fair enough. You know, I'm the one who does the family cooking in this house. George, is that Jorge or is that George? Let me know. I don't know how you would let me know, because you're only going to say the same thing again and it's going to come up the same way. Jorge. So, wasn't Napoleon Dynamite's best friend Jorge in that wonderful film Napoleon Dynamite? I loved that movie. Do you remember? And he's like, his best friend was Jorge. Was that his name? And like they did like little jumps on their bikes together and stuff. And he was like so uncool. He was so cool. I love that film. I need to rewatch that film. It was just beautiful, genius. Who played Napoleon Dynamite? I don't know. Was it? I don't know. I can't even begin to guess. I can see his face, but I can't remember who it was. The brother was one of the best characters in that film. Napoleon Dynamite's brother. And I actually went for lunch a few weeks ago in a kind of hipster area here in Los Angeles. And there was a guy sitting with his girlfriend having like brunch outside. And I swear to you, he was so hipster, he was the image of Napoleon Dynamite's brother, who was like a super nerd, who wore these like big glasses, and he had a bit of a comb over. This guy was the spitting image of him and had embraced the irony of his look and had gone full hipster. He was such a hipster, he practically had 2 beards. Anyway, it just made me think of that film. And we were talking about Wes Anderson movies yesterday, and I really do feel like they have brought a lot of joy to this world. You know? The notion of a Wes Anderson film just being beautiful. And I think, what was the one we mentioned yesterday? Moonbeams and what? Unicorns, what was it called? Yeah. Moonrise Kingdom. Moonrise Kingdom is probably the most beautiful in terms of its simplicity. You know, a little boy that meets a little girl, they fall in love, and they are literally like 9 years old. And they have a whole love affair. It's very innocent. They have like a special place where they meet to go camping, and it's like a coming-of-age movie. It's so beautiful. I really do genuinely think that we are... I really do think that we underestimate the value of these little love affairs that we have in our lives. You know, and how they teach us, they enable us to evolve, to grow, and to learn about our needs, what we need. And that comes back to us talking about what we want and what we need, and the difference of knowing what we want, but not knowing what we need. Carla's first crush turned out to be a gay man. Must have cut you up. What's that wonderful line in that Robbie Williams song? All the best men are married, all the handsome men are gay. It's true. It's true. Okay, let's go back to the newspapers. I think we're going to look at the Enterprise record next. They lead this morning with Putin orders troops to eastern Ukraine. A long-feared Russian invasion of Ukraine appeared to be imminent yesterday, if not already underway, with Russian President Vladimir Putin ordering forces into separatist regions of eastern Ukraine. A vaguely worded decree signed by Putin did not say if troops were on the move, and it cast the order as an effort to maintain peace, but it appeared to dash the slim remaining hopes of averting a major conflict in Europe that could cause massive casualties, energy shortages on the continent, and economic chaos around the globe. He made the weirdest speech yesterday. I need to watch it in full, but he made the weirdest speech, like Address the Nation from the Kremlin. And it was full of inaccuracies, and it was full of gaslighting, and, you know that he's painted the Ukrainian people as the baddies to the Russians. He said that they're murderers, that they have mass graves, that they've all this stuff. Like, he's created this whole narrative that is untrue about the democratic nation of Ukraine. It's all untrue, and he's planted these seeds, this propaganda. It's very, very worrying. A headline, a day of fun and vaccines on the Enterprise record. The Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church will be hosting a full-day community family on Sunday. The event, which celebrates Black History Month and reunites people with the community, will be held at the church's location. And they're also going to offer a vaccine clinic offering Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson vaccines. Both boosters and original shots for ages 5+. A $25 Safeway gift card will be offered to those getting shots as an incentive. Isn't that crazy? They're literally paying people to get vaccinated. And the reason they have to do this at this church is because, as we know, statistically, the black community are behind when it comes to getting vaccinated because of historical trauma. associated with white people sticking needles in black people. And so, and I really do feel that this conversation, almost an apology, wouldn't it have been better for like the chief medical officer or for the president to have issued, and maybe he did and I missed it, an apology for this experimental medicine that went on for years? And so distrust has become the kind of, the calling card now of all of this stuff. On the right, because I don't really put the African-American community in this with this kind of anti-vax right-wing section. That's a different section. They're all about freedom and liberty and not being told what to do. Whereas this group are more like, can we trust this? And so, the answer is yes, incidentally. I'm a very big, vaccine proponent. I got my vaccine as early as I could. I got it in March and April of last year, and I got my booster before anybody got their booster because I got in line way too soon. I need another one. Although they're saying we're probably not going to need another one now. They're saying that there is enough immunity now around that is going to help us because these vaccines don't actually work against Omicron. But Omicron is mild enough that there is this now herd immunity. It's another overhead. I tell you, I think I'm just like extra sensitive because of the war. So anytime I hear like a plane overhead, I'm like, and I'm in a bunker, I'm like, is this okay? Am I okay? Yeah, it doesn't say what it is. Although there is one heading straight for me. The Roost Cafe has successful reopening. Nice headline there. Do love a cafe. And here comes the colds. Low temperatures on the way. Cold nights expected to start Monday night with temperatures in the low 30s. Officials warn that Thursday morning could be the coldest with temperatures dipping below 30 and poses the most risk to crop damage. So there we go. That's the Enterprise record this morning. Let's just see how you guys are doing. Charlie's joined us. Victor's joined us. Jessica has joined us. Good morning, Jessica. Noah, Molly, and Jorge, potentially. That's how it looks. Let's go to the time standard. Did we do that one yet? No, I don't think we did. Let's go to the time standard. See how that's presenting itself. They lead with Super Tuesday. From bust to boom, weddings rebound in Humboldt County. Valentine's Day always makes February a popular month for weddings, but this year the month holds another special day in store for lovebirds who want to tie the knot, Super Tuesday. Clients love to choose fun numbers for their celebrations, says what's her name? Allegra Sita. Allegra is such a wonderful name, isn't it? Allegra Sita. Owners of gala events and weddings. While Humboldt County issues the most marriage licenses between the months of May through June, Kelly Sanders, Humboldt County's clerk, record and registrar of voters, told the Times Standard there's usually an increase in marriage licenses around Valentine's Day. And a lovely photograph of a recently wedded couple, and it's two girls. So we've finally broken a social barrier on the front of the Times Standard. If you've been to a wedding recently or you've got one on the way, I do love a wedding, but mainly for the food. It's the first thing that I do if I receive an invitation. I RSVP on the proviso that a hot meal will be served. And ideally a buffet, so you can just keep going back, eat as much as you can for the price of the wedding gift. And so if I was to get a wedding gift that was over $100, I would want to eat $100 worth of food. So maybe I just wouldn't have breakfast or lunch that day. Just go for the evening and just fill up, 3 main courses. Depends what the gift is, right? If you're just going to get them a $25 Amazon voucher, then, just have the dessert. And put the main course in your purse for tomorrow. Tribe grapples with crisis. Yurok tribe declares emergency. Calls for database to handle growing cases of missing women. Yes, this is the young mother had behaved erratically for months, hitchhiking and wandering naked through 2 Native American reservations in a small town clustered along Northern California's rugged low coast. But things escalated when Emily Reisling was charged with arson for igniting a fire in a cemetery. Her family hoped the case would force her into mental health and addiction services. Instead, she was released over the pleas of loved ones and a tribal police chief. Wow. These stories, these local papers are so essential because they bring us these stories of real life, stuff that is really happening that never makes the national papers. And it is really important. Hospitals face the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic. It says while the state of California is ready to glide into a state of normalcy, it is. Local hospitals are expecting to feel the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic for some time to come. While hospitalizations relating to COVID-19 have dropped precipitously in the county, the Great Resignation, supply chain issues, and high cost of traveling nurses are weighing heavily on the administrations of 3 of the region's hospitals: Providence St. Joseph in Eureka, Providence Redwood Memorial Hospital in Fortuna, and Mad River Hospital in Arcata. And Betty Chin to receive honorary doctorate, it says. This is Betty Chin. She is her humanitarian efforts from Cal Poly Humboldt in recognition of her decades of service to Humboldt County's most vulnerable people. That's lovely, isn't it? So there we go. That's the standard this morning. If there's a paper where you are, let me know and I'll, read it out. Jaden's in Massachusetts and has just joined us. Charlie and Victor as well. If you're in and around, wherever you are, whoever you are, then thank you for joining Backchannel on this Tuesday morning. It's the 22nd of the 2nd, 2022. All the twos today. It's one of those all the Tuesdays. It really is Tuesday. Okay, next up. Let's have a look. What do we have? Any more? Oh, the Fresno Bee. Who doesn't like the Fresno Bee? I've not been to Fresno, but I've been told that it's an interesting place. It looks nice in your rearview mirror. Clovis Unified loosens COVID protocol, ends contact tracing, it says. Yes, Clovis Unified is ending some of its COVID-19 protocol, including the end of contact tracing, the school district announced. The changes went into effect Thursday after receiving school guidance updates from Fresno County Health Department of Public Health. And as part of Clovis Unified updates in dealing with COVID-19, contact tracing will no longer occur. It's nice to know they were doing it in the first place. I worry that no one's bothering. A very tragic photograph on the front of the Fresno Bee this morning of a woman called Tetiana Tomenko cries near her damaged house after alleged shelling by separatist forces in eastern Ukraine on Sunday. The headline is Putin orders peacekeepers to separatist regions. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed decrees ordering military forces into 2 separatist regions of Ukraine for peacekeeping purposes as Moscow recognized the breakaway region's independence on Monday. Putin signed a decree recognizing the area, a move that Russia could use to justify an attack on those areas, as an agreement of cooperation with the heads of 2 regions. The formal recognition prompted a chorus of condemnation from world leaders, some vowing sanctions. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that President Joe Biden would issue an executive order prohibiting U.S. investment and trade in the breakaway regions. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called Putin's recognition of the breakaway territories a blatant violation of international law and said the bloc would react with unity. Just think about what's happening. I'll just explain a little bit about what's happening here. Well, so Russia has basically been invading Ukraine for nearly 8 years. But it's been under the guise of separatist movements. So they basically fund rebels. They're not really rebels at all. They're basically Russians. And so what you end up with is you end up with this pockets of military action. Shelling, in this case, they refer to it as shelling, which is bombing. This photograph here of this woman's house, of Tetiana Tomenko, her house has basically been destroyed. And Yeah, this used to be this is the former Soviet Union, right? So this is like a whole bunch of territories that used to come under one umbrella that basically got broken up, as we know. The days of Gorbachev and Boris Yeltsin and all of these kind of wonderful characters that were involved in this, you know. I mean, Gorby was like a goodie. Do you remember? Like, we thought of Gorbachev as a goodie because he was basically somebody that was able to broker change. And, you know, we had that famous speech by Ronald Reagan, because it was during Reagan's tenure that all of this kind of started to unfold. And so we referred to it as the former Soviet Union. Well, Putin is not that guy. You know, Putin is a man of a previous generation. And he wants total power and control. And consequently, you know, whilst he can't be seen on the world stage to be invading these territories, they do it by stealth. So they fund rebels, separatists, who position themselves strategically around the country. Like it's no surprise that there's some in the north and some in the south. They are positioned so that they could, you know, potentially. And Ukraine is a huge country. Its landmass is the second biggest landmass in Europe, behind Russia. And now I'm really kind of starting to feel like Putin had this plan all along and was just waiting for the right moment. And so when we talk about these new troops that have shown up, they reckon there's over 170,000 Russian troops at the border, amassed, ready, waiting with equipment, military equipment. I really feel like it almost doesn't even have to come to those troops being used because the war is already underway. And Putin now is saying that these areas that the separatists have been attacking are going to be recognized as Russian territory. And by saying that out loud, that breaks all the conventions of every peace treaty that's ever been written. That is land grabbing. That is breaking international law. And that is something that the Ukrainians don't want, and it's probably something the Russians don't want either. Let's be honest. Because the Russians are not bad people. They're just led by bad people. So we'll see how this plays out. I am very worried, genuinely very worried, because it's just too much. It's just too much. You know, it's like we are living in a time now where this is a perfect example of why Donald Trump was so foolish to try and break away from the Paris Climate Accord or the Iran nuclear deal. He didn't realize that all of these deals, just because they have Paris in the title, the Paris Climate Accord has got nothing to do with France. He probably didn't even know that. The Iran nuclear deal is on the floor, it's in pieces, and of course Russia is involved, everybody's involved. These pacts are designed to solidify relationships between multiple territories. And they even do more than just, the Iran nuclear deal does more than just prevent Iran from enriching uranium at weapons grade levels. It does more than that. It brings countries together for talking points. It's unilateral. It's a necessary form of diplomacy, and it goes far beyond enriching nuclear weapons. Trump wanted to take America out of NATO. Just think about that for a second. NATO is this alliance of countries that is effectively the enemy to Russia over this, over this Ukraine crisis. Trump wanted us to come out of NATO. He did not like the idea of being part of these unified organizations. And the tragedy of that is that he has destabilized the entire world. And I don't know enough about it because I'm not an expert. But if you were to ask an expert about how Trump had an effect on the current Russia crisis, he'd absolutely give you a whole bunch of answers. I mean, look, he built a friendship with Vladimir Zelensky. You know, he had that whole perfect phone call. It all affects the situation today. Keep your enemies close. No, your friends close, but your enemies closer is a phrase that springs to mind. Maybe that was his entire modus operandi. Marvin has joined us. Thank you, Marvin. Hi to Sports and Reba, Karan, Tracy, Yuri, and Jaden. Thank you for joining us here on Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. We're going to listen to the daily news podcast now. It's 2 minutes long. It's basically an update of what's happening across the world. In terms of Russia, I think it will cover today. It might be like a little bit out of date because a lot has happened this morning, but we'll hear it, and you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Here it is. It's Tuesday, February 22. From the Volley Network, this is your daily U.S. news update. I'm Anthony Davis. U.S. President Joe Biden met his national security team yesterday regarding Russia and Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin recognized 2 breakaway regions in eastern Ukraine as independent on Monday and ordered the Russian army to launch what Moscow called a peacekeeping operation into the area, accelerating a crisis the West fears could unleash a major war. Putin told Russia's defense ministry to deploy troops into the 2 regions to keep the peace in a decree issued shortly after announcing recognition for Russian-backed separatists there, drawing US and European condemnation and vows of new sanctions. It was not immediately clear whether the Russian military action would be regarded by the West as the start of an invasion of Ukraine that the United States and its allies have warned about for weeks, since the area was already controlled by Russian-backed separatists and Moscow in practice. There was no word on the size of the force Putin was dispatching, but the decree said Russia now had the right to build military bases in the breakaway regions, and that the troops' mission would be to uphold the peace. Your daily US news update is part of the Volley Network. To hear my live daily morning show, ask your Amazon Echo device to open Backchannel. There it is. That's the US news update. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. Download and enjoy. I'm Anthony Davis. Welcome to Backchannel. It's the Anthony Davis Show. As you can see, it says it right there. It's 10 o'clock on this, 10 o'clock in the morning here on the West Coast, Pacific. It's 1 o'clock Eastern. And whoever you are, wherever you are, welcome to the show. You can message via backchannel.tv. You can also go to YouTube, follow the show there. If you don't have a Echo Show device with a camera, with a picture, you can just go to YouTube and see the show as well as hear it. And you are very welcome to talk back to your Echo Show. If you've got one, you can hands-free, wake it up, say, and then your message, and that comes straight through to me here, So, lots to talk about, lots to do, lots to get under the skin of. We're looking through the morning papers today and kind of getting our head around the Ukraine crisis. I've been trying to talk through kind of what it is and what it means and what it's all about. Fresno B is where we were looking. I think we've kind of done... Oh, no, let me just do this story about the Ahmaud Arbery trial. Oh, so quick hellos to... Stacey says she's got to go. Stacey, thank you. Hello, goodbye. Vicky, Laura, Kerr, welcome. Margaret's joined us. And Lorraine, first time on the show. Thank you. Okay, let's have a look at this story. Yeah, Stacey, have a good day. I'm sorry you have to go soon, but I'm very pleased that you've spent the morning with us yet again. Stacey's here like religiously every single day. It's a wonder. It's a wonder. Truly a wonder. It says jury hears dueling views on racism's role in Arbery trial. Something I'm kind of keen to talk about because, the Ahmaud Arbery story has been something that has just moved me so much. The tragedy of that lynching. And it says 3 white men who chased and killed Ahmaud Arbery on a residential street acted out of pent-up racial anger and should be convicted of hate crimes, a federal prosecutor told a jury on Monday. Defense attorneys argued that the black man was fatally shot in self-defense, had acted suspiciously during prior trips to the neighborhood. The jury of 8 white people, 3 black people, and 1 Hispanic person heard dueling reasons for the killing in U.S. District Court, where verdicts on hate crimes charges rest not on whether the pursuit and shooting were justified, but whether they were motivated by racism. The trial began a week ago The prosecutor argued that Travis McMichael was looking for a reason to hurt a black person when the 25-year-old Arbery jogged past his home on Sunday afternoon. Perez cited a slew of racist comments and videos the defendant had posted online, and when McMichael, his father, and a neighbor began chasing Arbery, they had no evidence that he had done anything wrong, but they assumed he had because he was black, Perez said. When McMichael's father, Greg McMichael, saw Arbery jogging down the street, he didn't grab his phone and call the police. He called his son and grabbed his gun. There's a big difference between being vigilant and being a vigilante, said Perez, later adding, it's important for you to understand the full depth of the defendant's racial hatred. Do you know, the thing that gave it away for me, because, there's video of this whole thing. This is the crazy thing, is that the friend, who was with them, filmed the whole thing. And I don't want to talk in too much detail about Ahmaud's death because it was very visual and very harrowing because he died on camera. It was awful. But what was most interesting was some police body camera footage that has been released since of these defendants being interviewed afterwards, covered in blood, covered in Ahmaud Arbery's blood, saying things like, this wouldn't have happened if he'd have stopped. And I'm like, wow, the guys were out for blood. That's exactly what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with people who fundamentally are white supremacists. They are the modern Ku Klux Klan. And they don't even hunt their prey at night anymore with a white hood on. They do it in the light of day. And don't even attempt to disguise their appearance. That is what it's come to now in modern America, is these modern-day lynchings, the execution of people. And it's not just the public doing it, it's the police doing it. Their uniform, if not a hood, and of course we know back in the day, the Ku Klux Klan, many of them were police officers. And here we are. All of these years later, 2022, and it's still going on. And George Floyd, executed at the hands of Derek Chauvin, is exactly the same thing. It's just more of the same. And it just presents itself in slightly different ways, but we would be foolish. Benjamin Crump, who's this wonderful lawyer, this public defendant guy who he kind of is always there. Whenever there's a race hate crime, he's always there, supporting the parents, being a spokesperson, championing the desire to bring some kind of, civil right equality to society. And it's always him having to make another speech, another sad, tragic speech. Breonna Taylor, of course, was his first big, story that he got behind. It's very moving. I find it very moving that this is still a thing. And if you have a view, if you are somebody who feels as passionately as I do about this and you'd like to share and you'd like to talk about it, then that's what we're here for. That's what this forum is. You can go to backchannel.tv. And you can type it up really quickly with your fingers, or if you want to say a few words, you can just talk to your Echo Show device and, make this part of the conversation. The Bradenton Herald is next for, where is it? Is it like Florida? No, it's Anna Maria Island, Bradenton, Cortez, Ellington, Lakewood Ranch, Palmetto, Parish, and Sarasota. Swiss banking leak shows how rich and powerful stash money. Wonderful. More wonderful news to make you feel even further away from the powers that be. A Yemeni spy chief implicated in torture the sons of Azerbaijani strongmen who rules a mountainous territory as his own private fiefdom. Bureaucrats accused of looting Venezuela's oil wealth and hastening its descent into humanitarian crisis. They come from all over the world, each associated with a different corrupt authoritarian regime, and each enriching themselves in their own way. But there is one thing that unifies them: where they keep their money. After its luxurious watches, snow-capped mountains, and superior chocolates, The Alpine nation of Switzerland is perhaps known best for its secretive banking sector. At the heart of that sector is Credit Suisse, which over its 166-year history has become one of the world's most important financial institutions, with nearly 50,000 employees and 1.5 trillion in assets under management for 1.5 million clients. This banking behemoth is a testament to how central the banking sector is in this wealthy and comfortable nation. I've been to Switzerland. It is an amazing place. What an amazing place. I went to a place in Switzerland called St. Moritz. Beautiful. Well, my experience of Switzerland was only St. Moritz, which is like snow-covered. It's like a kind of. I went to do a job. I went to do a show there. I was literally there for like one day, and we took a bus up the mountain to this. Oh, it was insane. It was like this. How would you describe it? It was like a private club at the top of a mountain with a toboggan run down the side. It was insane. Some wealthy person paid a bunch of us to go and do a show. I was doing comedy, you know. Comedy? What is that? I have no idea. It's in my past. It was maybe like 15 years ago I went. But I was impressed with this. You know, the thing is about places like Switzerland is that they're very well run. You know, they're like the way they operate, they're very well run. And it makes you realize how places like England and America, you know, my experiences of living in these two countries, is like the services are pretty run down. You know, the infrastructure, the lack of investment. And yet you have companies making huge profits and they don't plow that money back into infrastructure. So we, the people, have to pay our bills for our utilities and services, and yet we don't see the benefits of those. I mean, the drinking water here in this area that I live in California is like rife with poison, toxic. And yet the DWP make a fortune, and it's so expensive. And I really felt like in Switzerland, they didn't really suffer those kind of issues. Maybe they just have so much money that they're able to, you know, make those types of investments. Also on the front of the Bradenton Herald this morning, after anti-Semitic flyers, Sarasota residents rally against hate. Yes, a rally in Sarasota on Sunday called for residents to come together, united against hate, after the area neighborhoods saw anti-Semitic materials left on lawns last week. The hateful flyers were left overnight and found on driveways in the morning, including around 100 of them in the Cherokee Park and Oyster Bay communities. Law enforcement continue to investigate the incidents. Jewish and non-Jewish members of the Cherokee Park Neighborhood Association came together to brainstorm an idea for a community-wide unity campaign, including yard signs and a public rally. The group tapped the non-profit Jewish Federation of Sarasota Manatee to help organize Sunday's event. I mean, here's the thing, and this is all connected, you know, hate crime. Whether it be the slaying of Ahmaud Arbery or the murder, the execution of George Floyd, or whether it be Breonna Taylor being murdered in her bed by the police, or whether it be black men running for their lives from police and being shot in the back, which we hear about time and time again. Or whether it be a police woman who wants to taser somebody on a traffic stop and ends up pulling the wrong weapon and shooting him dead. It keeps happening. And unfortunately, what goes with that are these hate crimes that we're hearing about now. Why should this rabbi of the Sarasota Manatee Rabbinic Association have to stand up and make a prayer and talk and be united against hate in 2022? How is that still happening? How is it getting worse? It's getting worse. Minority groups disrespected and hated, and let's be clear, it's because the white man fears that they will eventually become a minority. It is because the white man fears for their own future. And so race hate, hatred of minorities, disrespect of groups, and the tragedy is it would be fine if it was just a few criminals in society and they could be arrested, but it is leaders. It is leaders from Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. It is leaders such as Greg Abbott. It is leaders such as Ted Cruz. It is leaders such as Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, whose hatred for minority groups, anybody who was not white, Aryan, Anglo-Saxon, he said it. He will always refer to people with good genes. That you've got good genes, you've got good genes. He's obsessed with this, this genetic superiority. It's white supremacy. How do we survive that when it's our leaders that are behaving like that? How do we survive that? On Fox News, you've got Tucker Carlson siding with the Russians in this war. He has chosen Russia over NATO. He said it out loud. And he keeps saying it. And I was watching a clip this morning of him saying it out loud. He said, I have sided with Russia. He actually said those words out loud. This is the biggest news program in America, the most watched news program in America, on the most watched news channel in America. The lead anchor is siding with Russia. And he referred to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez the other day as white and privileged. This is a woman whose mother was from Puerto Rico and father's from the Bronx, and has identified as a minority group. That's her heritage. That's how she identifies. And he said the whole thing is a ruse. It's a fake. She's white. She's not black. She cannot use this rhetoric. She wrote some very, very powerful tweets to rebut his language. But my point is that these white supremacist characters are now in these positions of authority. It's not like they are in the shadows. They are anchoring the biggest TV news shows in the country. Sean Hannity is the same. Laura Ingraham is the same. These people, they all hold these white supremacist views. And is it any wonder that race hate crime is on the rise? Is it any wonder that when Trump blamed China for the pandemic, hate crime towards Asian Americans went through the roof? And people didn't care what country they were from or what country their heritage was. I mean, most of them were American, obviously. But because they looked Chinese, even though they were Korean or even though they were Japanese, they still, or Thai, so many people from Thailand, or with Thai heritage. I mean, what happened to that? Do you remember that massage parlor that got where that white supremacist guy went into? I think they were Thai, the people working there. And that was a hate crime off the back of the pandemic, directly connected. You know, we are bringing this upon ourselves. If we continue to vote for white supremacist authoritarians who don't believe in integration and social justice and democracy, we are inviting this hatred into our lives. So we only have ourselves to blame. And if you vote for a character like Trump because he's charismatic and fun and funny and hates the establishment, you've been fooled. You've been played. Nancy has joined us. Hello, Nancy. Welcome to the show. Great to see you. She's in California. Karen and Thomas and Karan and Sammy, Dorothy and Virginia, Vicky, Laura, Kerr, Margaret, Lorraine, Marvin and Sports, Reba, Karan, I said twice, Tracy, Yuri, Jaden, Charlie, Victor, Jessica, Noah. Thank you for joining us on Backchannel today. It's 10:16 here on the West Coast. It's 1:16 Eastern. And we're looking through the morning papers together and seeing what's making the headlines in this crazy world as the country is on the brink of war. If you want to join in, you can, of course, wake up your Echo show. Just say the wake up word followed by say, and then your message. It'll come through to me here. If you don't have an Echo show, that's an Echo speaker with a screen on it, a picture. Then you just type backchannel.tv into your browser on your phone or your laptop, your computer, or wherever, and you can message me throughout. Just keep talking. You want to message me, you want to talk, I'll read it out. We'll make it part of the show. Then that's down to you as well. If you don't want to, that's fine also. You can just listen. Everyone is welcome. And if you don't have a screen but you'd like to see this face, the face that launched 1,000 stars, then when you tune in, you're going to be thoroughly disappointed, I can assure you. My voice is a much better characteristic than my face. Then go to YouTube and just search Anthony Davis Backchannel, and it'll pop up there as well. Okay, let's continue with our reviews. Let's go to Florida now, and the news press. Lobbyist documents leaked from office is the headline. Former Collier County Deputy Manager Sean Callahan apparently left confidential records relating to foreign governments behind after his firing from the county last month. The records discovered in his county government office were related to his second secret lobbyist job within the firm of Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck. The Naples Daily News obtained the records in response to a public records request. I mean, this is more of the same. We're talking about people in high office who are corrupt. And they're all white men. Always white men. The same group that are fearing that they're slowly being, will slowly become the minority. Locals with Ukrainian ties urge U.S. support. This is a very interesting story, actually. It says close relatives and descendants gathered half a world away on Sunday in Naples to protest what they said was continuing Russian aggression against their homeland. Children are being taught evacuation drills and procedures, said Natalie Santarserio, president of Naples branch of Ukrainian National Women's League, and one of more than 24 residents from Naples, Bonita Springs, Marco Island, who are campaigning. And they were gathered outside the waterside shops. Free Ukraine. Support Ukraine. Support Ukraine, not Russia. Isn't it a tragedy that in America they're having to say support Ukraine and not Russia? I mean, it should just be obvious. You should know who the enemy is, and you should know who the friend is. And yet it's not clear over here. Yeah, because Trump confused the situation, because he stood side by side with the Russian president. And his argument was, befriending these people is going to be best for America. Because he doesn't understand. He has no understanding of the system. The other thing is that Russia was lending him money. He was talking about building a Trump Tower in Moscow. And whenever he said Russia, 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 what he was doing was projecting and deflecting. If you've bothered to read the Mueller report, which I have, I read the synopsis, I didn't do the whole thing, but I've basically read what it fundamentally said. It said that there was enough evidence to convict Trump of colluding with Russia. That's what it said. And yet when the report was announced, do you remember what happened? The Attorney General at the time, William Barr, made a press conference an hour before the report was read out, was released to the press. He got up and he made a phony press conference, preempting what was in the report, saying that it had cleared President Trump of any wrongdoing, and that is not what it said in the report. The Attorney General was in cahoots with the president, lying to the people when an independent report is done, and says that the only thing that stopped Trump from being convicted was the fact that he had presidential privilege, that he was protected by the presidential seal at that moment, at that time. Not now. They created a whole new narrative. And unfortunately, Robert Mueller just didn't want to, push for it. He's a lifelong Republican, of course. I don't know how that affected it, but he's also a career man, and he is somebody who stood by his findings and unfortunately didn't want, because he respects the office and the executive branch and all of this, he didn't want to then stand up and contradict the words of the Attorney General and the President. He wanted to allow the report to speak for itself. But guess what? Nobody read it. Nobody read it. Why would you bother to read the Mueller report if the Attorney General has just got up for half an hour and explained what was in it? Not even journalists read it. Some did, but not the ones that are, churning the 24-hour news. So they basically created a diversion, a whole diversion. They faked the Mueller report so it sounded like Trump had been exonerated, and he had not. He had been implicated. And this is why you have the likes of Tucker Carlson saying, I stand with Russia. It's more of the same. This world is in a really bad state right now. I have never, in my lifetime, I have never known it to be like this. And then you sprinkle the whole thing with a pandemic on top of all of these international relations that are on the floor. It started for me with Brexit, of course, when the European Union and the United Kingdom went their separate ways. That was really the start of this for me. It was very sad. And since then, I've just seen it crumble. The whole experiment that is these territories, Okay, let's whiz through these. Where are we at now? That was the news press of Florida. The St. Lucie News Tribune. Putin recognizes separatist Ukrainian regions. Yes, Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday recognized the independence of separatist regions in eastern Ukraine. I'll just explain what that is. These are Russian-funded so-called rebels who have now taken these little regions, and he is now recognizing those as independent from Ukraine and therefore now as Russian territory. Paved the way to provide the military support, triggering threatened new sanctions from the US and Europe and further fueling fears that Russia could imminently invade Ukraine. The carefully scripted Kremlin announcement flew in the face of European efforts for a diplomatic solution to the escalating crisis, which has brought East-West relations to a new low and jeopardized trade. US, British and EU officials called it a breach of international law. It also came amid a spike in skirmishes in the eastern regions that Western powers believe Russia could use as a pretext for an attack on the Western-looking democracy that has defied Moscow's attempts to pull it back into its orbit. Experts tracking Omicron's stealth variant. Oh, good. Just when the world was starting to get back to normal, we have a new stealth variant. BA2, a subvariant related to the BA1 Omicron variant, is circulating in over 60 countries, including the US, where it's been linked to over 250 cases. It's been identified in at least 25 states, including Florida. The technical lead for COVID-19 at the World Health Organization recently stated that BA2 is more transmissible than BA1, so expect to see BA2 increasing in detection around the world during a press conference. Do you know what I think? And I don't want to tempt fate, and I don't want to scare you and any of those things, but I also recognize that there's going to be another spike. There's going to be another moment now where cases will rocket. We'll be back in with the masks. They'll be making new vaccines for Omicron, and we'll find ourselves back in exactly the same situation we were in before. And an increasing number of these people, led by this right-wing media movement, are going to be like, don't stand for it. It's just the left trying to own you, and we're not going to... And so the reason it'll self-perpetuate is we will never get to the end of this pandemic because it has been politicized. New variants will arise. They're definitely coming. I didn't take my mask off the first time, so it's not a problem for me. I can just stay in this space. But I'm telling you, it's like we are, we're not going to see the end of this anytime soon. And it's a shame because it needs to end. It's enough already. It's enough already. Okay, where are we at now? And how are we doing? How are you doing, more importantly? I hope you're okay. I hope you're having a nice Super Tuesday. Tuesday, all the twos today, the 2nd of February, 2022. 2-2-2-2-2-2-2. And a reminder that Backchannel has a growing list of shows here. It's not just me. I'm just here for another half an hour. Then it's going to be your pal Hal. But there's also Haley and Alison live, waking you up in the morning. Live Every Day with Liv Harrison. She's live from Texas. Don't know when she's on. No one tells me. And we all do like an hour or two, and we're on 5 days a week. And you can absolutely, at any point, dip in and get to know the hosts and introduce yourself and be part of the show. That's what this is all about. Okay, where are we now? Times Union for New York. We're heading to New York. Times Union leads this morning with Hussein details limo business. This is Norman Hussein, the local limo operator who admitted to criminal negligence in the 2018 limo crash that killed 20 people, has finally broken his silence on the case. Earlier this month, he was questioned via Zoom by an attorney representing the victims of the family in the horrific crash in the civil lawsuits against him and some of his family members. It was the first time that Hussein had been subjected to any substantial questioning under oath since his 2019 indictment by a county grand jury on charges of manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide for renting out the stretch Ford Excursion limo involved in the crash after it had been ordered off the road due to bad brakes and numerous safety violations. Do you know we have a thing in England called the MOT? It's an MOT. So basically once a year you have to have your vehicle checked by a mechanic to make sure that it's roadworthy. Not here in California. I don't know how it is in other states. You can drive a vehicle that is completely unroadworthy. I mean, sure, you'll run the risk of being pulled over by the police, but I see cars that have literally they're just like four wheels on a chassis and like no doors and like the roof's ripped off. They've clearly been in an accident and people are quite happily driving them around because they can't afford to get them fixed, or maybe they don't want to. The only thing you have to have is a smog test to make sure that your emissions are in line with California law. I find it remarkable that it's just, that you can drive vehicles that are so unroadworthy in this state. Also on the front of the Times Union, Putin sends troops forward. Russian president orders forces into separatist regions of Ukraine, as we've been discussing. Shred busts snowboarder barrier. Non-profit group offers programs to people of color in capital region. That's good. That's like a snowboarding initiative. And Common Council makes history with its makeup. For the first time in city history, the majority of members of the city's Common Council are people of color. 9 of the council's 15 members are black or Hispanic. The addition of 2 more members in the city's most recent elections who come from minority backgrounds gives even more weight to the council's burgeoning black and Hispanic legislative caucus, which was formed last year. As the new council ramps up its legislative agenda, it is also a council that is younger and more progressive than its predecessor. We're going to be saved by the youth, I'm telling you. We are going to be saved by the youth. They have a conscience. I'm telling you, it's on a whole new level. Jerry, hello, welcome. And Nancy as well. Nice to see you. Karen, Thomas, Karan, Sammy, Dorothy. All hanging out with us here in the Backchannel space. Okay, that's how the newspapers look. Are we done with those? Where do we go next? We've got 2 more. We've got the Ithaca Journal and the New York Times. Well, let's do the New York Times, and then we can move on, I think. Putin orders forces into eastern Ukraine. Fiery speech claims nation as part of Russia and hints at wider aims. And another photograph of another elderly lady devastated, taking shelter in a basement. The nation's President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke to President Joe Biden on Monday. Well, who is this woman? It's not Volodymyr Zelensky. Maybe it's an unnamed elderly woman with a scarf wrapped around her head. And she looks absolutely devastated. It says Vladimir Putin on Monday ordered troops into separatist-held eastern Ukraine and hinted at the possibility of a wider military campaign, delivering an emotional and aggrieved address to his nation that laid claim to all of Ukraine as a country created by Russia. That's what he's thinking. US and its allies considering timing and scope of response. Also, jury to decide whether racism motivated 3 men to kill Arbery. Well, I think they've already decided that now. And the answer is yes. Duh. And debt relief blocked, black farmers fear ruin. Yes, I mean, every story seems to have a race issue. It's like we are literally back in the 1950s again. For Brandon Smith, a fourth-generation cattle rancher from Texas, the $1.9 trillion stimulus package that President Biden signed into law nearly a year ago was long-awaited relief. I already said hello to Jerry. Hey, Jerry. Yeah, I already gave Jerry a nice shout-out a few moments ago. So yes, this is, a rancher who applied for debt relief and instead he received a foreclosure warning. That's basically what that story is about. After booster, body's defense is long-lived. This is very interesting. It says, as people across the world grapple with the prospect of living with the coronavirus for the foreseeable future, one question looms large. How soon before they need yet another shot? Not for many months and perhaps not for years, according to a flurry of new studies. 3 doses of a COVID vaccine, or even just 2, are enough to protect most people from serious illness and death for a long time, the studies suggest. They say we're starting to see how diminishing returns on the number of additional doses look like, according to the director of the Institute for Immunology and the University of Pennsylvania. Although people over 65 are at high risk of illness may benefit from a 4th vaccine dose, it may be unnecessary for most people. Federal health officials have said they are not planning to recommend a 4th dose anytime soon. I mean, yeah, we're basically getting a kind of herd immunity now, aren't we? And the more people, there's like 70% of people are vaccinated, they reckon that's kind of enough now. Okay, finally, I'm going to jump onto the Ithaca Journal because it's very interesting. They lead with black home ownership rate to get worse by 2040. Again, same story, different headline. It says at 60, Sonia McGee still dreams of becoming a homeowner. Not having been able to buy a home earlier has cost her a lot. She said, you have nothing to leave behind for your family. There was no place I could go and mark my kids' heights. I couldn't do that because it was not my house, she said. So it's like you can't create memories and be able to go back and say, oh, this is our childhood home. Well, you could, I don't want to undermine the story, but you can batten a piece of wood against the wall. You get a nice piece of wood and you just batten it against the wall and you mark their heights there. And then you could take that with you. It's just she's given an example, which I personally, it's like people say, oh, I don't want to hang pictures in my house because it's rented and I don't want to make holes in the walls. And it's like there is a thing called filler. Don't live under somebody else's terms. Don't feel like it's not your home just because it's rented. I just think that mindset is wrong. But let's go back to the reality of this situation, because McGee, who is black and works as director of gift store at the Intrepid Museum in New York City, I've been to that museum, it's very good. It's on the Hudson. Said for much of her married life, she and her husband, from whom she's now separated, made too little to qualify for bank loans. We could barely make our rent payment, she said. She lives in Nanuet, New York. Being black and a female, you don't get the better paying jobs. If you get a job, they don't pay you as well as they pay other people. It's really hard to try and overcome the obstacles when you feel like you are constantly being pushed down. Over the pandemic, she, like many of her colleagues, had to take a 30% pay cut. The gap in the homeownership rate between black and white families in the US is bigger today than when it was legal to discriminate based on race, according to a study by the Urban Institute, a Washington, D.C.-based think tank. What changed all this, you may ask? When did this happen? When did the clock start winding back? Trump. The Trump effect is going to linger for generations. He gave racists their rights back. Made people feel like it was okay to discriminate. Why? Because the president is. And if the man at the top is discriminating, why shouldn't we? New York cases plummet 34.5% as students head off on break. This is COVID cases dropping 34.5% last week as students headed into February break on Monday. The state added 22,000 new coronavirus cases in the week ending Sunday, down from the previous week's tally of 33,000. It's kind of good, isn't it? And also, finally, England moves on. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced on Monday that England will scrap all remaining coronavirus restrictions, including rules for people in England to self-isolate if they contract COVID-19, raising concerns from scientists over the country's ability to monitor and track the virus. This is a disaster, let me tell you. And this is what happens if you elect a clown. You elect a clown, you're going to get a clown show. You're going to get a circus. Yes, the British government's plan for living with COVID. Isn't it crazy they've actually called it something, when in fact it's not a plan at all. It's effectively no plan. We'll treat it like any other transmissible illness. The legal requirement to self-isolate for at least 5 days after a positive test has been replaced by guidance, and mass testing for the virus scaled back. I mean, my biggest concern with this is that they were saying that even if you have COVID, you can still go to work. That's part of what they announced the other day. Even if you know you've got COVID, you can still go to work. If it's not causing you much bother. If you can breathe. Unbelievable. Some scientists say it was a risky move that could bring a surge in infections and weaken the country's defenses against future strains. It's going to end in disaster. Mark my words, you've heard it here. England is gonna go south because of this. You know, Boris Johnson, desperate to be liked. So many scandals. He's doing it because he just wants to win back the support of people who have abandoned him because of his behavior during the pandemic. He basically went to parties that he shouldn't have been at. Parties! When everybody else was having to be completely isolated and quarantined. Johnson was in the party. Insane. Okay. That's great. Let's talk to Hal in about 7 minutes' time at 1:45. That would be great. Okay. Okay, well, let's take a look at some of these stories. Shall we do a quick thing on Donald Trump and this bid to block the January 6th committee from getting his White House records? I'll just mention it briefly because I think it's very important. The U.S. Supreme Court, which is, of course, a conservative-stacked court, so there's more conservatives there on the court. Therefore, they're probably going to, because they claim to be non-political, they obviously are. And in fact, one would argue that the Supreme Court now is just completely corrupt because of some of their recent decisions. But Yeah. The president tried to block the January 6th committee from accessing White House records. Now, these records are supposed to be like public knowledge, aren't they? We're talking about caller logs, visitor logs, these types of things, which Joe Biden and Obama before him made, public all the time. You could access them. The decision to deny review, first reported, came a month after the High Court rejected an initial stay of the documents, effectively allowing the committee to access them. The committee had sought White House documents such as a draft speech Trump was going to give on January 6 and a draft executive order giving him the power to order the seizure of voting machines. Both of those documents were provided to the committee on January 21st, 2 days after the initial SCOTUS order. It's amazing, isn't it? Now, he's going to be furious, of course, because 3 of the people who are, Supreme Court justices are Donald Trump appointees. Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Neil Gorsuch, right? These 3 people were Trump appointees, and therefore he thinks they have got his back because he's a mafia guy, right? So he's like, you do a favor for me, I do a favor for you. That's just how he is. The guys are he's like a crap mafia guy. He's a strong man in name only. The court's move, which came in a brief unsigned order issued without comment, comes after the justices denied Trump's emergency request to block the transfer of his White House records from the National Archives to the House Select Committee, a process that began last month. Tuesday's development formally ends Trump's legal effort to stymie lawmakers' efforts to obtain a batch of schedules, call logs, emails, and other requested documents that the committee says could illuminate key circumstances surrounding the deadly Capitol riot. I mean, this is all... The mere fact that he's blocking this, trying to block this, is proof of his guilt. He knows he did wrong. The January 6th committee has not established a hard deadline for completing its investigation, but Thompson has said the panel hopes to wrap up by early spring. The committee faces separate legal challenges to its investigative authority and ongoing court clashes with former Trump advisor Steve Bannon and former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, as well as Trump spokesperson Taylor Budowich and post-election legal advisor John Eastman. Amazing, isn't it? So I personally think that Donald Trump will get indicted. I actually think he will now. And I think that what that is going to do is it's going to cause an uprising. And he will prime people at rallies for this. He'll say if they come after me, it means they're coming after you. He'll say if they try to take me away, then they're going to want to try and take you away. He's going to say that anything that they say bad about me, they're saying about you. And he will try and turn his 70 million voters, his super fans, his MAGA crowd, he'll try and turn them against the establishment, turn them against the Justice Department, turn them against the presidency, turn them against the executive branch, turn them against Congress, turn them against the Senate, turn them against the committee investigating him and the insurrection. And they will rise up. They have weapons. They will. This will be the Civil War of 24, I'm telling you. And I'm not saying it to tempt fate because it's just obvious to me. You know, he did it on a smaller scale on January 6th. He sowed the seeds that the election was probably going to be a fraud if he didn't win. He pushed that narrative for a year leading up to election night. On election night, he didn't win, and so he said, well, there it is. There's the proof. I've been saying it all along. It was a fraud. And then he goes to the Capitol and he rallies his people to take back their country, to be strong. I'll go with you. We're going to march to the Capitol building. Because you don't take back your country with weakness, he said. He basically told them that by Joe Biden winning, which he never said out loud, that they had lost their country. And this really is the fundamental kind of crux of all of this, is he as an individual, because he doesn't care about the United States. He is not a patriot. He is the most un-American person that was born in America I have ever seen. He cares nothing for the people of America. He cares nothing for the institution of America. He cares nothing for the Constitution. He cares nothing for the institution that is our democracy. He cares nothing for democracy. It's proven, it's shown, it's clear, it's on every video, it's on every speech, it's everywhere. The whole thing is there for you to see. And yet somehow he's managed the greatest confidence trick in history, convincing half the country that he is fighting for them. And he isn't. He doesn't care about the coal miners. He doesn't care about all the people that he claimed to want to give them back their livelihoods. He did nothing for these industrialized cities that had fallen on hard times. He did nothing for them. He just talked a very good talk. All he did was rig the 401k so that people looked like they were getting an extra $1,000 rebate. He basically bribed everyone with $1,000 very early on in his presidency. That is the only thing he gave people. And somehow, everybody seems to want to be his friend. We're going to talk about Black History Month in just a moment and celebrate the life of Claudette Colvin. Because, of course, it's Rosa Parks who's famous for launching the Montgomery bus boycott when she refused to give up her seat and moved to the back of the bus for a white passenger. But before Parks, there was Claudette. She was just 15 years old when she refused to give up her seat for a white passenger. 9 months before Parks did the same thing, the schoolgirl was handcuffed, arrested, and thrown in jail. She subsequently participated in a court case that outlawed bus segregation in Montgomery and Alabama. A pioneer of the civil rights movement during the 1950s. Yeah, I mean, her name is like lost in history compared to. I mean, I've always thought that, you know, the number of activists you can name, like Carla, how many activists like that are known to the public are there in England that you can think of that we know? I can literally name Peter Tatchell. I can't name any others. Right? He was like part of the original like Stonewall movement. I've interviewed him a couple of times. An amazing guy. He's like, you know, he's 60 years of age now. But I literally cannot name any known activists in my home country. There are movements I could talk about, but individuals. I mean, Alan Horton, I used to be a big fan of. He ran the Stop City Airport expansion one. He was like an airport campaigner. Lovely Irishman. You ever meet Alan Horton? Stop City Airport? Oh, you would love him. He was the greatest. But I just fear that, you know, we ignore these activists at our peril. We really do. So anyway, we'll kind of leave it there. But I just want you to look her up if you get the chance. It was the 2nd of March, 1955. She was riding home on a city bus when a bus driver told her to give up her seat to a white passenger. She refused, saying, "My constitutional right to sit here as much as that lady. I paid my fare. It's my constitutional right." Colvin felt compelled to stand her ground. She said, "I felt like Sojourner Truth was pushing down on one shoulder and Harriet Tubman was pushing down on the other, saying, 'Sit down, girl.' She said, 'I was glued to my seat.'" So she was arrested for violating segregation laws. Much of the writing of civil rights history in Montgomery is focused on the arrest of Parks, another woman who refused to give up her seat on the bus. But while Parks has been heralded as a civil rights heroine, Colvin's story has received little notice. Some have tried to change that. Rita Dove penned the poem Claudette Colvin Goes to Work, which later became a song. Philip Hoos also wrote about her in the young adult biography Claudette Colvin, Twice Toward Justice. So there we are. Interesting. Oh, she's still alive. She's not dead. She was born in 1939. She's still going. She's 82 now in Montgomery, Alabama. There we are. I apologize if I was talking about her like she was dead. Absolutely not dead. Quite the opposite of dead. Very much alive. Just like our guest, Hal Rudnick. Very much alive.
Still here and kicking.
How are you, my friend?
Good. Nice to see you, Anthony. And I appreciated hearing about. Is it Claudette Colvin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lesser known pioneer in the civil rights movement, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, it was 9 months before Rosa Parks. But I suppose, you know, this is kind of typical, isn't it, of how the media remembers people and history remembers people. And there are so many stories like this. And, yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I'm sure there are countless
I have
pioneers.
an interesting movie story for you, which I've been meaning to tell you all week.
Would love to hear.
Because I know that you're a fan of the films. And I
Quite
have
an enthusiast.
A small claim to fame that I was in a Superman movie.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, do tell.
So I'll tell you how it happened. We're talking about, this is 1980, I think it's 1986.
Okay.
So the movie was Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, starring Christopher Reeve.
Of course.
Arguably the worst of the Superman films.
Yeah, some might say. I remember he battled like a thermonuclear powered.
That's right, Nuclear Man. Yeah,
Nuclear Man.
Yeah. And I think Christopher Reeve wrote it, actually. I think he wrote it. And I don't think he directed it, but he was heavily involved by then. So this is how it went. I was on vacation with my parents as a child, and at this someone gave a talk about being in the movies, and the actor that gave the talk was Mark McClure, who famously played Jimmy Olsen, the photographer in the movies.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Mark McClure, of course, was in Back to the Future, played Marty's brother, who disappeared in the photograph. And he's been in a bunch of films. He's a very, very good actor.
I can picture him in my mind's eye.
Right. And so, anyway, I think my mum must have chatted to him afterwards and said, oh, my kid, is like into acting and stuff. And he said, oh, well, we're going to be shooting Superman 4 in England. And, maybe he'd like to come along. And my mum was like, okay. So this is the great kind of nub of this story, is that he didn't give a phone number or anything. My mum called the studios, like Elstree or Pinewood or whichever it was, and said, can I speak to Mark McClure? And they put him on. He came to the phone. And she said, do you remember me? We spoke and you said, and he was like, yeah, we're filming a scene at the United Nations building, which is actually Milton Keynes Station in North London. Come along and be in the scene. So, of course, my mum takes me, along with my little brother, and we meet Christopher Reeve in his full Superman costume, shake his hand, right? He's standing right there. And Jimmy Olsen, Mark McClure introduces us. These are the kids I met on holiday, and this is Superman. And can you imagine me? I was an 11-year-old boy getting to meet Superman in his costume. Wow. And I'm in the scene, and I have a photograph. I'll email you the photograph because we won't be able to show it. What a delight!
Oh my goodness!
I have a photo of that day with me in the scene with Christopher Reeve. And
it's a kid's dream.
It's a kid's dream. I don't think it's in the film. I think the scene is in the film, but I think it was all so fast with me just like walking by, you can't even see. But,
sure.
It happened. So I thought you'd like that because I know that you love a superhero film.
I do, and that is a brush with greatness, a thrill. I would never forget that. That's, the closest I come to that as a kid is when I met professional wrestler Macho Man Randy Savage at the Newark airport.
This is so good. I love that. I love that.
And Christopher Reeve, of course, gone too soon, sustained tragic injury. But he just a pioneer. Those Superman movies, like, would we have the billion-dollar industry we have today without those? And of all those 4 movies, I would say Superman 2 is my favorite, with the great British actor Terence Stamp.
Yes, as General Zod. That's right.
Yes.
Kneel before Zod. What a great line.
So good. That's amazing. Let me ask you this. So I know you don't partake too much in a lot of pop culture hooey and nonsense nowadays, but what's the last superhero film that you've seen?
Well, I try and watch them all because, I have like a Disney Plus account, so I'll try and catch up with them. And I've tried to watch the new ones, the new series, because you can't tell if you're watching a film or a series these days, can you? Because,
there's so much MCU content.
Right. And so, but I do like the whole kind of Captain America stuff. Winter Soldier, I think, is probably my favorite of that kind of brigade. I really like that one. Oh, that's a great one. I thought that was a really good film.
The espionage and the action, really strong in that one.
Yes. So I say I don't engage in popular culture. I do eventually get round to watching these things.
Okay.
And I actually watch them to relax, weirdly. Like, I kind of quite like having them on in the background, even if I'm not, like, focusing. If I had the time, I'm just busy. If I had the time, I would absolutely be watching these things all the time.
Yeah, it's good, just kind of escapism. Turn your brain off and just go along for the ride.
Yeah, it's just a tragedy that it's also violent. It's like there's only so much of that I can take.
Although it's violent, but there's not a lot of bloodshed.
Right. Yeah. But it's still the action of like bang, 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 which is so steeped in American culture. That it's like, we'll never wean children off of wanting to own a gun when we, when it's so much part of the entertainment. Okay, I have to go, but I'm very pleased to see you and talk to you. And I know your show's going to be great because it always is. And I always watch you. The first thing I do when I leave this room is I go upstairs, I make some tea, I put you on my huge television, I see you in 55-inch Technicolor, and I listen to you while I'm pottering and winding down, and so I'm very grateful to you for that.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Anthony Davis. Always great to see you, sir.
You too. Have a good day and have a great show. That's your pal Hal. I'm back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific. Enjoy